Hello, and welcome to the hashtag Here to Here Keeping It 100 podcast. My name is Damon Naylor, and I'll be serving as the host. I am the media guru for NAFCM, and I'm joined by my co-host, DG Mon, the president of NAFCM. What's going on, DG? How's it going?
I'm doing okay. It's been a while since we've been together, so I'm excited to hear from Linda and experience your magic, Damon.
Right. Awesome. As always, we're glad to hang out with you again. And as you stated, today we have a wonderful guest with us. It's Linda Troop out of North Manchester, Indiana. And Linda's the Program Director of Education for Conflict Resolution. And so without further ado, we're going to bring her in and have this great conversation with her. Hello, Linda, and welcome.
Hello, sorry, I was muted.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay.
Right. So welcome to the hashtag Here to Here Keeping It 100 podcast, Linda. We're just so excited to have you. And we just did a brief introduction, but we always give our guests a chance to give some personal background information to the listeners and to the viewers.
Well, I don't know what you told them, but I retired from teaching and thought that I was going to sit and maybe watch a little TV. But I got on the board for Education for Conflict Resolution, and just gradually, with my, sort of penchant for leadership, worked up to the board chair. And then after that, we lost our director. I don't mean to death, I just mean he retired. And they asked me to continue on as a paid director at that point. I was interim before that.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you. And I'm aware that what I would ask you, what part of Indiana do you live in? How would you describe your area there?
It's Northeast Indiana. It's basically rural. The town in which ECR is located is about 5,000 people, but we have a university here, and that's where we're located on. We're in a building on the university campus. University is Manchester University. Okay. So we're living in North Manchester, Indiana.
Okay. Wonderful. So we know your story is going to really resonate with a lot of our viewers. They can connect with you and, being in the same situation, but we thank you for being a part. And so we're really excited tonight to be able to talk about this school attendance mediation. And one of the first questions we want to ask is, why can't school absenteeism and truancy be resolved with the traditional punitive methods?
They don't work. That's the first reason they don't work. If you think that you can scare kids or punish kids into coming to school, that's not going to deal with the real problems, because we offer, mediation is a structured conversation that we have with parents and students and the student about what's really happening. What are the underlying reasons? And because we are an outside party who's tries to do a neutral kind of approach, neutral, unbiased, and caring, we often uncover the underlying reasons why kids are not coming to school. And it's mostly, I'll tell you from my experience, 90% of the time, it is not, I hate school. It is not that. In fact, far from it. When I give them a question that says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel about school? The students will always give me 7 or above. That's not the problem. The problem is always something that's happening at home or some health problem that they have. Students nowadays, the worst problem I see coming up is high anxiety, not being able to go to school because they have anxiety. Well, threatening a kid with suspension or even expulsion is not going to do anything for that anxiety. So we offer a way to get at the problem that sometimes school administrators can't get at because of attitudes towards school and non-trusting, but they tend to trust us because we create that kind of situation in our mediation.
Awesome. So it seems like you guys are able to get to the core and the root of the problem. And as you stated, create that safe space where they can really share and open up. And as you talked about stress, I guess we would probably say some of it is attributed to ACEs or the adverse childhood experiences,
Yes,
maybe a lot of the cases that you guys
trauma,
encounter, the trauma.
trauma, secondary, primary, trauma experiencing in a secondary way, the trauma. Often we have parents who come in who've had more trauma around school than the actual student. And so we have to deal with that secondary trauma as well.
Right. But yeah, well, like I said, it sounds great that, you guys are able to take a more holistic approach and, like you said, get zero in on what's really going on. And I find it interesting that you said about 90% of the students, it's not that they hate school, but there's something else. And as you stated, yes, man, with the punishment, that won't resolve that. But
No.
yes.
And, we show pretty good results. I mean, I don't know if you want to know about that or not, but
yes, please, yes.
In our county, Wabash County, this program first got going in 2017. And last year in 2022, we took a look at what are the truancy affidavits that have been filed, because that's what, at a certain point, the administration has to file a truancy affidavit with the juvenile probation department. And they keep records on that. And what I found is that in 2019, they had a high of 30 affidavits for expulsion. Whereas in 2022, they had 8. Before that, the year before that, there were 4. So it's really telling. The data is really telling, I think, about how successful we've been.
So, yeah, that is tremendous. That's a tremendous impact and, very successful. Well, hats off to you guys. So we could segue right into it. If you could tell us a little more about your collaboration with the probation department.
Oh, yes. Well, around 2017, the county judge, Judge McCallan, and other people that worked with, at that time, that worked with ECR, Education for Conflict Resolution, decided to try and come up with a plan for a way to keep kids in school and not have to put them through the legal system or even come into contact with the legal system. And so they wrote for a grant from the state and received it. At that point, the probation department in Wabash County, in Wabash, Indiana, decided to write every year. They saw the difference. They saw how we were able to help with the tenants. And they began to write for grant money to support us every year, because we can't just provide mediations and not get any revenue from it, because we can't exist. And so they just routinely do that now. And that is through it's difficult to explain, but there's an organization called Juvenile Detention Alternatives Initiative. Okay, JDAI is what I call it all the time. And their whole purpose is to keep kids out of the juvenile detention system. And when they heard of our intervention program, then they really encouraged probation to write for these funds granted from the state to help keep kids out of that system. And so it's an intervention program, and they support it, and they're part of the juvenile delinquent program or probation office.
Awesome. And I guess it's kind of fitting a trend I'm noticing a lot of, especially state funded programs and just programs period, run by the state, are going more to the prevention, like you say, trying to keep the kids like out of coming into contact with the state. And also in my line of work, I see it as far as with the children who face abuse and neglect, trying to get them into the relative placement as opposed to in the system. But I love that principle because, it's just, like you said earlier, the punitive measures are not working, just them being, going.
And
go ahead.
if you want to talk about how it contributes to the whole pipeline to prison kind of thing, what does it do to expel a child or suspend them all the time, for interminable periods from school? It doesn't educate them, but it does make it possible for them to have to do things that are not lawful, and then really get in a lot of trouble.
Yep.
So that's why we see ourselves as an intervention program.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, DG, would you like to ask or chime in?
I have just two questions. One, in this process, Linda, you talked about how your data after COVID really showed a lot of
Mhm.
downward trends, what we wanted to see. How have you been able to do that when a lot of the immediate research and literature says that COVID has increased anxiety for students coming back to school because they had that whole period of time of attempting to learn at home? How have you been? I'm just so impressed. How have you been able
Well,
to withstand that?
and you're right. I mean, after COVID, I mean, during COVID, we didn't get very many referrals for mediations. Okay. But right at the end of COVID, we did. We began to pick it up. And you're right. I mean, anxiety it's just a huge issue. And I don't know that I can give you a solid answer on that. I mean, you know, the difference between the national rate of truancy, which is 26%, something like that, and ours is like 21%. But that's still large. And we do work with, you know, problem solving kinds of things in our mediation. Our agreement, what we do is we forge an agreement as a result of the mediation. And the terms of agreement sometimes say, I'm going to take my child to a therapist, you know, to work with their anxiety, or I'm going to take my child to a child psychiatrist to see if they really do have ADD or any of the learning disabilities that are keeping them, holding them back from school. So we do rather practical agreements with practical solutions on them. And it's not just parents that have to do some things, it's also the administrator and the student, him or herself. But I can't honestly answer that we've done anything extraordinary, except care.
Have you been getting the rates to go down? Because it's been going
Yeah,
up
yeah.
because of the anxiety and the tension and
Uh-huh.
as you said, the parents and the children. And then when you look at some of the school board issues that are happening, that just compounds that anxiety. So you're doing something. Maybe Manchester University can help you evaluate what it is you're doing, because we all want to know what it is, because it is
Okay.
impressive.
Thank you. We work at it.
Well, yeah, I love it. I guess so. Of course, we know numbers wise, there's been a decrease, and that shows some impact and effectiveness of your program. What are some other, I guess, measurements or ways we can tell how your program is being so successful?
Well, other measurements are that once other JDAIs groups in the state. Now, the thing with JDAI, I think every state has them, but not every county has them. But the JDAI counties, once they saw that Wabash could get granted funds for this program, and they looked at our data, they began to ask, well, how do you do this? What do you do? Well, we didn't have a training program, but we invented one last year. We wrote the manual, we did the trainings. And so now we have people from, I think, 4 counties wide who are practicing our system. So that to me is a measure of how successful we've been. And we've got more people coming back this spring to get trained.
Awesome. Well, yes, that is great. If you're the model and, setting a precedence for it, that is definitely a great measurement there. Thank you. Thank you. And so something that I'm just thinking about, kind of going back to what we discussed earlier, where you were talking about how you guys get to the core of the issues. Once you, I guess, find out what's going on, do you partner and collaborate with other services to provide them to the kids, or?
We don't partner with other services, but we do recommend other services. But that's not really our role. And
Right.
and in fact, when we first started, we had the problem of the school administrators thinking that our role was to enforce something. No, we're not the enforcers. But we do care whether or not people follow through with the terms of the agreement. So like two weeks after we have a mediation, our lead mediator will call the parents and see, how you doing on this? Are you living up to the terms? How's your son or daughter doing with the terms of the agreement? We also call the school to see if their attendance is better. And then we try to problem solve around that. We don't have any partnership with any other resources, but we do recommend them. And we do, as part of our agreements, we sometimes ask, would it be, do you think it would be possible for you to do this or that or the other thing? We try not to be too directive, which is really, that's in the spirit of mediation, period.
Awesome. So I know the school year kind of is coming to a close. We're getting closer to the end. What are your goals for, say, this upcoming year? What are you guys projecting to do or looking to accomplish with
Well,
the upcoming school year?
this has been a high school program, mainly a middle school, high school program, because the student always sits in on the mediation. And by the way, that student sits in a room with 4 or 5 adults. And so we have been very careful to make sure that the student feels empowered. We focus on the student. We start with the student. We create an atmosphere where it's, they feel power rather than disempowered. Okay. Where was I going with that? Give me the question again.
Just about your upcoming goals for
Oh,
this
yeah, go.
upcoming
Okay.
school year.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. So, we just feel like because of the new state law, and the new state law says that all school systems that have children from grade 1 to 6 who are absent 5 days unexcused will have to have an affidavit sent to the juvenile delinquent probation department. Now that is pretty stern. And so we're going to ask, let us step in, let us do mediations, and then decide whether or not you want to send that affidavit to the probation department. So it's just a new law, and I don't know how people are going to interpret it, and I don't know how far they're going to go with it, but that's what I see happening, that we are offering our services to elementary. We have done in the past, distant past, we have done elementary mediations, and I really enjoyed them. Kids are funny. They just sometimes they need for us to be a proxy for their parent. They need for us to talk to their parents. And when we do, they're so happy about it.
That's very good, very good. Now, just about to ask, I guess, is there any way that you guys incorporate the parents or engage with the parents in your process?
Yeah, I mean, they're sitting right there. And
Okay.
after we've given the child a chance to talk as much as they need to talk, then we move to the parent and say, well, how do you feel about the absence of your child? And what do you think is causing it? And what do you think that you might be able to do to change the situation and so on? So yeah, we talk to the parent right there. And sometimes that's a very good thing, because sometimes it seems like we'll have a mediation. Most of these mediations go for 45 minutes to an hour, but sometimes it seems like for a half hour, everything is all cheerful and, bold. It's like everything is wonderful and happy. And then we discover the moment that really unveils the truth. Like just recently, we talked to a parent whose child had 27 absences from school in just one semester. And 10 of those were from the fact that the child had COVID. But when we asked the question, when we turned it around and we asked the question, well, what accounts for the other 17? Then we found out what we really needed to find out. And it goes like that all the time.
Gotcha. So it takes some digging there, like you
It
said, to
takes
really
digging,
get to it.
and sometimes it takes, digging with the parent to really come up with what's needed. And sometimes it just takes emotional connection. I was doing a mediation not long ago, and I just stopped the mediation at a point, and I was sitting next to the junior high kid that we were working with, and I just said, I put my hand on his arm and I said, "You look sad. Are you sad?" And he said, "Yeah." And then out spilled all the fears he had about his parents separating and divorcing and all that. And we got to the real root of it. So that's what I'm saying. It's there's a lot of caring that goes into these mediations.
So it's hard work, right?
Yeah, it's hard work. It is.
Hard work.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. Well, this has been amazing. This has been amazing. Did you have any final questions or anything? That time is running, guys, running short, but yes.
I'm excited about your leadership
and excited that you're a part of our NAFCM family, and so proud that we're able to have you with this podcast and spread your good work across the continent. So thank you.
Right.
You're welcome.
Yes. Well, do you have any final words that you want to leave the viewers with, Linda, before we close?
Well, you said that you were at some point in our conversation, maybe before broadcast, that you were not familiar with this program of mediations for students in school.
Right.
And I don't know how rare it is, but I just want to say that our organization is 35 years old. And about 20 years ago, actually, maybe more than that, people got the idea that there was some other way that we could work with attendance problems in schools. And they began to think of this program. So it's been in the mix for a while now.
Yes.
And I think we probably are stepping outside of what other groups do in other parts of the country. I don't know. I'm not aware of any other program like ours, but there must be some somewhere.
Right. Well, we have to get the word out about yours, and hopefully if they don't exist, they will be created. But yes. Yeah. Well, it's been amazing. We thank you again for your time and appreciate you. You've given us some insight or some inspiration as well. And we
Thanks for the opportunity.
Of course. So we thank everyone for tuning in to #Here to Here, Keeping It 100 podcast. And Linda has surely kept it 100 today. So we're signing off. Thank you guys for tuning in. Continue to get the word out and take care.
Take care, everybody.
Okay. Bye-bye.